The text came in at 6:32 in the evening. Our 10th wedding anniversary. Stuck at work. I'm so sorry. Babe, happy anniversary. I'll make it up to you this weekend. 3 heart emojis. A kiss face. The digital shorthand of a woman who had been lying to me for 14 months and had gotten so comfortable with it. She could decorate her lies with little cartoon hearts. I sat in my truck outside the restaurant where I'd made a reservation for 2. I was wearing a suit I bought 3 days ago. Not from some fancy department store, from a consignment shop downtown because master electricians don't have fancy budgets. But a man's 10th anniversary only comes once, and I wanted to look like I understood that. I had flowers on the passenger seat. Her favorite. The same ones she carried down the aisle a decade ago. I almost drove home that night. Almost let another evening disappear into the routine of a wife who was always working late. Always just out of reach. But I'd already paid the deposit. So I walked inside, ordered a glass of wine, picked up the menu, and then I looked up. Across the room, behind a wooden screen, I saw a black dress. The one I bought her for Christmas. The one she said she was saving for something special. She was wearing it tonight. Across the restaurant, partially hidden behind that wooden screen. She wasn't alone. She was sitting across from a man silver-haired, tanned, in a suit that probably cost more than my truck payment. His hand rested on hers across the white tablecloth. There was champagne between them. 2 glasses with thin stems. The kind you only see in places where people spend money, like it doesn't matter. He said something. She laughed. That laugh. The unguarded one. The real one. The same laugh I used to hear across the kitchen when I'd say something that caught her off guard. She was giving it to someone else. And then she leaned across the table and kissed him. Not a peck. Not some quick, polite thing you'd give a coworker. A real kiss. The kind with history behind it. The kind with intention. The kind that promises something after dinner. I couldn't breathe. The restaurant noise, the clinking glasses, the murmured conversations, the soft jazz drifting down from the ceiling speakers, all of it collapsed into a single high-pitched tone, like the sound a wire makes right before it snaps. My hands gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. My vision narrowed until all I could see was that black dress, that silver hair, that kiss. I stood up. I was going to walk over there. I was going to grab that table and flip it. I was going to look my wife in the eye on our 10th wedding anniversary and ask her how the deadline was going. I made it 2 steps. Then a hand closed around my forearm. Sit down. The voice was low. Female. Calm in a way that wasn't relaxed. It was controlled. The kind of calm that belongs to someone trained to stay steady in moments when other people break. I turned. A woman I'd never seen before was standing beside my table. Late 40s. Dark hair pulled back tight. Navy blazer over a white blouse. No jewelry except a watch that looked functional. Not decorative. She had the posture of someone who'd spent years standing in rooms where standing correctly mattered. Let go of my arm. Sit down first. Lady, I don't know who you are, but my wife is over there kissing another man, and you're about to watch me make the biggest mistake of my life. She didn't raise her voice, didn't tighten her grip, just looked at me with gray eyes that were absolutely, perfectly still. I know who that man is. I know who your wife is. I know exactly what's happening at that table. And I need you to sit down because the real show is about to start. Something in her voice stopped me. Not the words themselves. The certainty behind them. This woman wasn't guessing. She wasn't improvising. She knew something I didn't. And the knowing was solid enough that I could feel it the way. You can feel the difference between a wall that's load-bearing and one that's just there for show. I sat down. She sat across from me. In my wife's chair. Next to the flowers my wife would never get to see. My name is Vivian Hale. I'm a private investigator. She reached into her blazer and slid a business card across the table with 2 fingers. I was hired 3 months ago by a woman named Marguerite. Does that name mean anything to you? It didn't. It will, she said. Marguerite is the second ex-wife of the man your wife is currently kissing. His name is Sterling. He's the CEO of the investment firm where your wife works. She paused, just long enough for the words to land, and their affair is about to cost him $5 million. I stared at her. Across the restaurant, the waiter was already bringing a second bottle of champagne to that corner table. My anniversary flowers were wilting in the chair beside me, and a stranger I'd known for exactly 40 seconds was telling me that the destruction of my marriage was nothing more than a subplot in someone else's revenge story. I'm going to need you to explain that, I said. I will, Vivian said, but first I need something from you. What? Patience. 30 minutes. Don't approach them. Don't confront them. Don't let them know you're here. Her eyes flicked toward the corner table. Then back to me. If you blow this up right now, in this restaurant, you'll get a shouting match. A scene. If you wait, you'll get everything. Everything, meaning what I asked. Evidence. Leverage. The truth about your wife that goes far beyond the man she's kissing right now. She glanced toward the bar. Order another glass of wine. Breathe. And let me tell you what I've found. I ordered the wine. I breathed. And Vivian Hale told me a story that made the champagne across the restaurant taste like poison in my imagination. Sterling is 52 years old. He founded his investment firm with family money, old money. The kind that comes with portraits in hallways and buildings with the family name on them. He's worth somewhere around $40 million. He's been divorced twice. The first marriage ended quietly. Years ago. No children. Nothing remarkable. The second marriage to my client, Marguerite, ended a few years back. And it ended because Marguerite discovered Sterling was having an affair with his executive assistant. Something shifted in my chest. Executive assistant. I repeated. She worked for him for 4 years. The affair lasted about 2 of them. When Marguerite found out, she hired an attorney who was very good. The settlement came out to $8 million. But buried inside it was something unusual, a morality clause. What's that? A contractual provision. If Sterling engaged in another workplace affair within 5 years of the divorce, he'd owe Marguerite an additional $5 million penalty. Is that even enforceable? In this state? Yes, if it's specific. And both parties agreed to it. Sterling's own attorney told him not to sign it. She let that sit for a moment. He signed it anyway. He was arrogant enough to believe he could control himself. He couldn't. No, Vivian said. He couldn't. Your wife is his current executive assistant. She started at the firm 6 years ago. Based on my surveillance, the affair began approximately 14 months ago. 14 months. I thought about the last 14 months. The late nights, the exhaustion she carried home like a second job, the new clothes that appeared in the closet, things that didn't match her paycheck, the distance in bed, the conversations that used to mean something, now going nowhere, the feeling of lying next to a woman who was already, somehow, somewhere else. 14 months of lies, and I had believed every single one of them. There's more, Vivian said, and this part matters to you directly. She reached into her blazer again. This time she produced a folded sheet of paper, a bank statement, and slid it across the table. During my investigation into Sterling, my team discovered your wife has been receiving payments beyond her salary, roughly $15,000 a month, deposited into a personal account in her name only. I looked down at the statement. Account number, balance, $211,847.33. Monthly deposits, each $15,000. From an entity I'd never heard of. What is this company, I asked. A shell. Registered to Sterling. No employees. No clients. No real operations. As far as I can determine, its only purpose is funneling money to your wife. $15,000 a month. For 14 months. Roughly $210,000 total. I set the statement down. Picked up my wine. Set it down again without drinking. My hands were doing that thing again, trembling. Losing control, something I hadn't felt in 20 years of working with live wires and panels that could kill a man if his hands weren't steady. She's been hiding $210,000 from me. Yes. While we're married? Yes. And in this state, that's subject to equitable distribution in a divorce. Half of that money is legally yours. But more than that, concealing assets during a marriage destroys credibility. In custody disputes, a parent who has systematically deceived their spouse for over a year is not someone a court tends to favor. I looked across the restaurant. My wife was laughing again. Sterling was refilling her glass. They looked like two people who'd calculated every angle, covered every base, left nothing to chance. They hadn't calculated me, sitting 2 tables away, on our anniversary, and they hadn't calculated Vivian Hale. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Your client is the ex-wife. What do you get out of helping me?" Vivian looked at me. Steady, unblinking. "My job is to build a case that triggers the morality clause. Your wife is the evidence. This relationship is the trigger." She paused. "And the evidence doesn't care who else uses it." "Is that legal?" I asked. "I'm licensed. My methods are legal. My findings are documented and admissible. And I have no obligation to keep what I've discovered from the spouse of the woman I've been investigating." She leaned back slightly. "I was a detective for 14 years before I became a private investigator. I've watched a lot of marriages end. Most of them end messy shouting matches. Thrown dishes. Scenes in restaurants, exactly like this one. Those endings feel satisfying for about 10 minutes. Then they turn into regret." She nodded toward the corner table, toward the black dress, the champagne, the hand resting on my wife's hand like it belonged there. "What I'm offering you is the other kind of ending. Quiet, calculated, devastating. The kind where you walk out of this restaurant tonight without saying a word, and 6 months from now, the woman who lied to you on your anniversary is sitting in a courtroom, watching everything she built on your trust collapse around her." I sat there for a long time. The jazz kept playing. The restaurant kept murmuring around us. Oblivious. My wife kept drinking champagne with the man who'd paid her $210,000 to betray me. And I made a decision. Tell me what to do. Go home. Kiss your kids goodnight. Act normal. Tomorrow. Call an attorney. I'll send you the full case file photographs. Hotel records. The financial trail. Your attorney will know exactly what to do with it. She glanced at her watch. And tonight, after dinner, they're going to leave this restaurant and go to a hotel. You know that. I know that. And my colleague will document every moment of it. Time-stamped photographs. Video of them arriving, leaving, the receipt for the room. By morning, I'll have an evidence package. No judge in this state will be able to ignore. I looked at the flowers sitting in the empty chair across from me. The ones she carried down the aisle. I had bought them for a woman who, I was beginning to understand, didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never had. Maybe the woman who promised me forever was already someone else by the time she said the words, and I just hadn't been able to see it. Because love is a blindfold we tie on ourselves. I stood up, left cash on the table for the wine, picked up the flowers. "One more thing," Vivian said. I turned. "Happy anniversary." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't sarcastic. It was the quiet acknowledgement of a woman who'd spent 14 years as a cop and 10 more as a private investigator, watching people's lives get dismantled and who understood that sometimes the only thing you can offer someone is the truth, even when the truth is a knife. I walked out of that restaurant a few minutes past 9, through the dining room, past the bar, past the hostess stand, and out into the cold night air. I didn't look back at the corner table. I didn't look at the dress I'd bought her, or the champagne I hadn't paid for, or the man whose hand was on my wife's hand on the one night that was supposed to be ours. I got in my truck, set the flowers on the passenger seat, started the engine, and drove home. My kids were asleep when I got there. The babysitter was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I paid her, thanked her, locked the door behind her. Then I went upstairs and stood in the doorway of their bedroom for a long time, just watching them breathe, thinking about the woman I married, the man she was with, the $210,000 she'd hidden from me, the 14 months of lies I had mistaken for a marriage going through a rough patch. I didn't cry. I wanted to. The tears wouldn't come. Something harder than tears had formed in my chest instead. Not rage, not even grief. Resolution. The cold, structural certainty that I was going to dismantle the life my wife had built. Not with noise. Not with some scene in a restaurant that people would gossip about for a month and forget. But with the same methodical precision, I used wiring buildings so the lights stayed on. Hers were about to go out. I should tell you who I am, because what she did only makes sense once you understand who she did it to. I grew up in one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, the kind of place where the houses lean a little and the porches sag, and the people inside them are tougher than the architecture. My mother raised me and my 2 brothers alone. She worked for the Postal Service for over 30 years, walking the same streets through summer heat and winter ice, never once calling in sick, never once letting us see her struggle, which meant she was always struggling. And we just never knew it. I became an electrician because electricity made sense to me in a way school never did. The logic of circuits, the predictability of current, the satisfaction of making something work that didn't work before. I got my license young, started my own company a few years after that, with 1 van, a set of tools, and a loan from a credit union that probably shouldn't have approved it but did, because the loan officer knew my mother, and figured any woman who carried mail for 30 years had probably raised a son who paid his debts. She was right. I paid it back early. By the time all of this happened, my business had grown. 8 employees, 2 trucks, a reputation across the city for showing up on time and doing the work right. Not wealthy, not poor, just a man who'd built something honest and kept it running. I met my wife at a friend's barbecue. She was working as an administrative assistant, saving up for a certification program. I showed up straight from a job site, still in a polo shirt with a small burn mark near the collar. She said it made me look like someone who actually worked for a living, which she found refreshing. After spending her days around people who treated physical labor like something that happened to other people. We dated 2 years, married in a small ceremony with 70 guests. My mother made the potato salad. Her parents drove in and seemed cautiously pleased their daughter was marrying a man who owned a business, even if that business involved crawl spaces and junction boxes. For 8 years. It was good. Not spectacular. Real. The kind of marriage where you argue about the dishwasher and make up before bed, and drive to a kid's soccer game on Saturday morning with coffee in a travel mug, and the quiet understanding that all of it is what you signed up for. Our son came first. Our daughter a few years later. We bought an old house that needed rewiring, which I did myself over 6 weekends. Because that's what electricians do. They fix what's broken even when it's theirs. She started at the investment firm a few years before all of this. It was a step up, better pay, better title. She came home, excited those first months, talking about her new boss like he was a character out of a novel, this larger-than-life man who ran a fund worth hundreds of millions and wore custom suits and had a corner office overlooking the river. I was happy for her. I didn't notice the admiration in her voice slowly turning into something else. The distance started gradually. The way distance always starts. She worked later. Came home tired. Stopped asking the small questions that hold a marriage together. How was your day? What did the kids do? I saw something today and thought of you. Those conversations got shorter, then less frequent. Then they stopped entirely. We still talked. We just didn't say anything. I told myself it was the job, the stress, the ordinary erosion every marriage goes through in the middle years, when the romance fades and the routine sets in, and you have to decide whether to fight for what's left or let it drift. I chose to fight. I planned the anniversary dinner, bought the suit, picked up the flowers, made the reservation at the one restaurant she'd mentioned months earlier, that she'd heard was romantic. I filed that detail away the way I file everything carefully, for future use. She filed it away too, for a different dinner, with a different man. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney. His office was downtown, in a building that used to be a bank back in the 20s, which felt appropriate. Because divorce, I was learning, is essentially a financial audit, conducted under emotional duress. Walk me through it, he said, pouring coffee from a pot that looked like it had been brewing since the Cold War. So I did. The anniversary, the text, the restaurant, Vivian, Sterling, the morality clause, the hidden account, the $210,000. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his coffee. How do you feel? Like I've been wiring a house for 10 years. And someone just told me the whole thing was on the wrong circuit. That's about right. He pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. This state requires fault for the kind of divorce you want. And you have professional-grade evidence. The hidden account is concealment of marital assets that's going to destroy her credibility in court. And the fact that the money came from her boss, the man she's sleeping with, funneled through a shell company to avoid detection. That's not just an affair. That's a conspiracy between your wife and her employer to defraud you. What about the kids? A parent who systematically lied to their spouse for over a year, hidden $210,000, and carried on an affair with their boss is not a parent the court tends to favor. I'm going to push for primary custody. Based on what you've told me, I think we'll get it. And him, Sterling. He's the ex-wife's problem, and based on that morality clause, he's about to have a very expensive one. But his involvement with your wife becomes part of our file too. The judge will see the whole picture. How long will this take? 6 months. Maybe less. If she's smart enough to settle. He looked up at me. You did the right thing last night. Sitting there instead of walking over to that table. Most men would have blown it. You didn't. That patience is going to win you this case. I didn't feel patient. I felt like I was being electrocuted from the inside. Slowly, one wire at a time. Vivian delivered her evidence package the following week. It was exactly as promised. Airtight. Dozens of photographs spanning 3 months. Time-stamped entries and exits from a hotel. The same room. 11 separate occasions. Receipts. The bank statements. Text messages obtained through legal discovery. And documentation of the woman before her, Sterling's last executive assistant. The pattern. Established. Repeatable. The papers were filed in early April. My wife was served at her office, in front of Sterling's corner window, with the river behind her. That evening, she came home in tears. "What is this?" she said. "Why are you doing this?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten 10 years of dinners, where our son did his homework and our daughter drew pictures of horses. I had a glass of water in front of me. Nothing else. No documents. No evidence. No props. Just the truth. sitting quietly between us like something I'd built and finally finished. You know why? Is this because I've been working late? Stop. She stopped. I was at the restaurant on our anniversary. I saw you. The color drained from her face all at once, the way current drains from a circuit the moment you kill the breaker. Complete. I made a reservation for us. I sat 2 tables away and watched you kiss your boss, while the text you sent me about being stuck at work was still open on my phone. She sank down, not into a chair, to onto the floor like her legs had simply stopped receiving signals. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. 14 months. $210,000 in an account I never knew existed. Paid through a shell company your boss set up. 11 visits to the same hotel room. Photographs. Message. Receipts. I took a slow sip of water. I know everything. Not because I went looking for it. Because someone else was already watching him and they found you standing right next to him. Who was watching? That doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that it's over. The marriage. The lying. All of it. She was crying for real now. Not performing. The crying of someone who'd been running a con for over a year and just hit the wall at full speed. The kids. Please. Don't take the kids. I'm not taking anything that isn't mine. But I'm not giving up anything that is. I'll end it with him. Tonight. We can go to counseling. We can. You wore the dress I bought you for Christmas to dinner with another man on our anniversary. You sent me a text with heart emojis while you were sitting across from him. I set the glass down. Counseling doesn't fix that. Nothing fixes that. She stayed on that floor for a long time. I went upstairs. Checked on the kids. Closed their door so they wouldn't hear their mother falling apart. That was the last real conversation of my marriage. The divorce took 5 months. My attorney was methodical. Relentless, the kind of man who built a case the way I built wiring. Every connection tight. Every junction secure. Nothing left to chance. Her attorney tried to fight it. Argued the hidden account was just personal savings. Nothing that needed disclosing. We brought out the shell company's records, showing exactly where that money had come from. The judge wasn't impressed with the personal savings argument. Her side argued the affair had no bearing on custody. We laid out the pattern instead. 14 months of deliberate deception. The concealed account. The text sent from the very table where she sat with someone else. The judge noted, plainly, that a parent capable of sustained, calculated dishonesty was relevant to the question of who that parent could be trusted to raise. The hidden account, every cent of it was frozen and split. She lost primary custody. I was awarded the kids during the school week. She got alternating weekends. The house stayed with me. As the primary residence for our children, Sterling's reckoning came on a separate track. But it arrived just as fast. The ex-wife's attorney moved to enforce the morality clause that spring. Sterling's lawyers fought it for 3 months. By summer, a judge ruled the clause enforceable. He owed her $5 million. The fallout didn't stop there. Major clients pulled their money once the pattern became public knowledge in the city's business circles. His funds shrank by nearly 1/3 within 6 months. He didn't go broke. Men like that rarely do. But he went from being respected to merely tolerated, which for a man whose entire identity rested on status was its own kind of death. My wife was let go from the firm not long after officially for restructuring. The kind of restructuring that happens when a CEO needs to remove the one person left who reminds everyone of his worst decision. No severance, no reference, and an agreement on her way out that meant she could never speak publicly about any of it again. Vivian sent me a final report once the other case wrapped up. Professional. Thorough. No flourishes. At the bottom, she'd added a single handwritten line, "The patience paid off. I hope the next chapter is better than the last." She was right. It is. A year has passed now. The anniversary came and went again last month. I didn't go back to that restaurant. Didn't buy flowers. I took my son and daughter to a pizza place instead, and we ate too many slices and played the claw machine in the corner until my daughter won a stuffed penguin she named Electric because, she said, it looked surprised, which is apparently what electricity looks like to a 5-year-old. The business is steady. We picked up 2 new contracts this year. I hired a 9th employee, a young apprentice who reminds me of myself at that age, all ambition, no polish, showing up early with his tools organized and his questions ready. My mother still comes by twice a week, which really means she takes over the kitchen entirely, while I stand around like a guest in my own house. Last month, we sat on the porch after the kids were asleep. She was drinking tea. I was finishing a beer. You did the right thing. Baby, she said. Which part? All of it. Not making a scene. Not giving that woman the satisfaction of watching you fall apart in public. You know who taught me that? Who? You. And the Postal Service. Rain. Snow. Slate. Hail. And a cheating wife. You just keep delivering. My son is older now. Baseball season again. Working on a curveball, his coach says is promising, which I keep telling him to hold off on until he's older, or he'll wreck his elbow. He asks about his mother sometimes. I tell him the truth. In pieces small enough for him to hold. Mom and Dad aren't together anymore. But Mom loves you. And you'll see her every other weekend. My daughter started kindergarten this year. She still fights me on the hairbrush every single morning. I'm still patient. We still get through it. Together. The way we get through everything. They're the reason I sat down in that restaurant instead of standing up. They're the reason I didn't walk across that dining room and give her attorney a decade's worth of ammunition. They're the reason I listened to a stranger who told me to wait, and the reason the waiting was worth it. I was 2 steps away from destroying everything that night. A hand closed around my arm, and a voice told me to stay calm, that the real show was about to start. I stayed calm. The show started, and when it was over, the lights went out for everyone who'd been operating in the dark. Mine stayed on. They always do. So now I want to ask you something. What would you have done sitting 2 tables away from your spouse on your own anniversary, watching them kiss someone else? Would you have stood up and flipped that table? Made a scene every single person in that restaurant would remember for the rest of their lives? Or would you have sat back down, listened to a stranger, and let patience do what anger never could? And here's the harder question. Have you ever uncovered a betrayal so complete it changed the way you saw the person you loved most, not just the affair, not just the lie, but the entire architecture underneath it, the hidden money, the rehearsed excuses, the heart emojis sent from the very table where they were sitting with someone else? Have you lived through something like that? And how did you survive it? I sat in that restaurant a year ago, 2 steps from making the biggest mistake of my life. A stranger's hand closed around my arm, and a voice told me to stay calm, that the real show was about to start. I stayed calm. The show started, and when the lights finally went out for everyone who'd been living in the dark, mine stayed on. They always do, because the truth doesn't need you to scream, it just needs you to wait. If this story reached into your chest and grabbed something, hit that like button right now. It tells me you're out there. And it tells the next person scrolling past that this story is worth their time too. Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you know someone sitting in their own version of that restaurant tonight, figuratively or literally, send them this video. They might need to hear it. Stay calm. The real show's about to start. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there.